Ladies and gentlemen, discipline, to some, feels like a rigid, authoritarian concept synonymous with punishment or rules. For others, it's the lifeblood of personal success, the driver of productivity, and the very thing that separates the accomplished from the complacent. Yet, what if I told you discipline isn't just about pushing through discomfort or adhering to external expectations? What if, instead, discipline is the framework we use to build the life we want, one that is rooted in self-awareness, deliberate choices, and the long-term pursuit of meaning? We often think of discipline as something external, a series of imposed restrictions or demands that we have to meet in order to achieve a goal. But true discipline isn't about external control, it's about internal alignment. It's about understanding what truly matters to you, what values you want to embody, and then choosing actions that reflect those values every day. Discipline is about consistency, not rigidity. It's about flow, not force. And when we understand discipline this way, it becomes not a punishment or burden, but a tool for liberation, growth, and ultimately fulfillment. Story of a personal struggle with discipline. I remember a time early in my career when discipline felt like an adversary. I was at a crossroads, unsure of where my career was going, exhausted from trying to meet external expectations and battling a deep sense of self-doubt. Every time I sat down to work, I felt paralyzed by the weight of what I thought I should be doing. I was constantly fighting against myself, trying to force productivity, creativity, and focus in ways that felt unnatural and unsustainable. One day, in the midst of this internal war, I had a conversation with a mentor who asked me a question that changed everything. What if you stopped trying to force discipline and instead started to trust yourself? At first, I didn't understand what they meant. Wasn't discipline the act of pushing through discomfort? Wasn't it about forcing myself to do the things I didn't want to do? My mentor challenged me to think about discipline in a new way, as something that could be rooted in self-trust and alignment with my core values, rather than a constant battle against my impulses. This shift in perspective led to one of the most significant periods of growth in my life, and it completely transformed how I approached discipline. Discipline isn't about controlling yourself, it's about committing to yourself. It's about recognizing that every choice you make is an opportunity to either move closer to or further away from the life you want to live. When we view discipline through this lens, it stops being something we do because we have to, and becomes something we do because we choose to. When we commit to discipline from a place of self-awareness and alignment, we are no longer fighting against ourselves. Instead, we are honoring the person we are becoming. Discipline becomes less about sacrifice and more about investment in our own growth, in our values, and in our long-term vision for our lives. But let me be clear, this doesn't mean discipline is easy. In fact, the most profound form of discipline requires an incredible amount of vulnerability, honesty, and courage. It means acknowledging where you are falling short, where you are making excuses, and where you are allowing fear or comfort to dictate your choices. And it means choosing to do the hard things, not because you feel forced to, but because you know they are necessary for your growth. In many ways, discipline is the ultimate act of vulnerability. It requires us to be brutally honest with ourselves about what we want, what we are capable of, and what is holding us back. It requires us to confront our fears, our insecurities, and our patterns of self-sabotage. And it requires us to take responsibility for our lives in a way that is both empowering and terrifying. When we talk about discipline, we often focus on the external actions, the early mornings, the long hours, the sacrifices. But the real work of discipline happens internally. It happens when we face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves and choose to show up anyway. It happens when we acknowledge our imperfections and limitations and decide to keep going despite them. And it happens when we allow ourselves to be seen not as perfect, but as committed. One of the biggest barriers to discipline is shame. Shame tells us that we are not good enough, that we are failing, that we don't deserve success. It convinces us that if we haven't achieved something by now, we never will. And it keeps us stuck in a cycle of avoidance, procrastination, and self-doubt. But here's the thing, discipline isn't about perfection. It's not about never making mistakes or never falling short. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard, even when you feel like you're failing, even when shame tells you to give up. Discipline is about resilience, not rigidity. It's about the willingness to keep trying, even when things don't go as planned. When we let go of the idea that discipline means being perfect, we free ourselves to actually embrace it. We allow ourselves to make mistakes, to stumble, and to learn along the way. And we stop using shame as an excuse to stay stuck. Discipline and courage are deeply intertwined. It takes courage to be disciplined because it requires us to step into the unknown, to face our fears, and to take responsibility for our own growth. It takes courage to commit to something long-term, especially when we don't see immediate results. And it takes courage to trust ourselves, to believe that we are capable of achieving what we set out to do. In many ways, discipline is an act of faith. It's the belief that if you keep showing up, keep doing the work, and keep pushing through the discomfort, you will eventually get where you want to go. It's the belief that your efforts matter, even when you can't see the results yet. And it's the belief that you are worthy of the life you are working to create. But courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. In fact, courage requires fear. You can't be courageous if you're not afraid. And you can't be disciplined if you're not willing to face the discomfort and uncertainty that comes with growth. One of the most powerful outcomes of discipline is the way it builds trust, both with ourselves and with others. When we consistently show up for ourselves, we begin to trust our own ability to follow through. We start to believe in our own competence, our own resilience, and our own worthiness. And that trust becomes a foundation for everything else in our lives. When we are disciplined, we also build trust with others. We show them that we are reliable, that we can be counted on, and that we are committed to the things we say we care about. This kind of trust is invaluable, both personally and professionally. It creates a sense of safety and stability, which allows us to build deeper, more meaningful relationships. But trust isn't built overnight. It's built over time through consistent actions and choices. Discipline is what allows us to build that trust, both with ourselves and with others. One of the most difficult aspects of discipline is learning to say no. We live in a world that constantly demands more from us, more time, more energy, more attention. And it can be incredibly difficult to set boundaries and prioritize our own needs and goals. But discipline requires us to say no to the things that don't align with our values and our long-term vision. It requires us to protect our time, our energy, and our focus. And it requires us to be intentional about where we invest our resources. Saying no is hard because it often means disappointing others or missing out on opportunities, but it's a necessary part of discipline. It's how we create the space and the focus we need to pursue the things that truly matter to us. Discipline is often associated with toughness, with pushing through discomfort and persevering in the face of adversity. But there's another side to discipline that is equally important: self-compassion. Self-compassion is the practice of being kind to ourselves, especially when we fall short or make mistakes. It's about recognizing that we are human, that we are imperfect, and that failure is a part of the process. When we practice self-compassion, we give ourselves permission to rest, to recover, and to try again. We stop beating ourselves up for not being perfect, and we start treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend. Self-compassion doesn't mean lowering our standards or giving up on our goals. It means recognizing that discipline is a long-term practice, and that we are bound to stumble along the way. It means being patient with ourselves and staying committed to the process, even when it's hard. Creativity and discipline are often seen as opposites. Creativity is spontaneous, free-flowing, and unstructured, while discipline is rigid, controlled, and systematic. But in reality, creativity and discipline are deeply interconnected. Discipline provides the structure and consistency that allows creativity to flourish. When we commit to a regular creative practice, whether it's writing, painting, or problem solving, we create the conditions for inspiration to strike. We don't wait for the muse to show up, we create the space for her to visit. In this way, discipline is not the enemy of creativity, it's the foundation of it. It's what allows us to take our ideas and turn them into something real. It's what helps us push through creative blocks and keep going when the work gets hard. And it's what enables us to turn our creative dreams into reality. Discipline isn't just about personal growth or professional success, it also plays a crucial role in our relationships. Whether it's with a partner, a friend, or a family member, discipline is what allows us to show up consistently and build strong, healthy connections. In relationships, discipline looks like being intentional with your time, being present when you're together, and making the effort to communicate openly and honestly. It's about choosing to invest in the relationship even when it's hard or uncomfortable. And it's about committing to the work of maintaining trust, respect, and intimacy over the long term. Discipline in relationships also means setting boundaries and taking responsibility for your own needs and emotions. It means being clear about what you need and what you are willing to give. And it means holding yourself accountable for your actions and choices. At the end of the day, discipline is about legacy. It's about the impact we leave behind, the mark we make on the world, and the way we choose to live our lives. Every action, every choice, every commitment is a part of that legacy. And discipline is what allows us to live in alignment with our values and create the life we want to be remembered for. Discipline isn't just about achieving success in the short term, it's about building something that lasts. It's about creating a foundation for the future, whether that's a career, a family, or a community. And it's about doing the work day in and day out to make that future a reality. When we approach discipline from this perspective, it becomes not just a means to an end, but a way of being. It becomes a practice of integrity, of alignment, and of commitment to the life we want to live. One of the most profound realizations about discipline is that it's intrinsically tied to freedom. At first glance, the two concepts seem like polar opposites. Discipline suggests restriction, rules, and control, while freedom evokes ideas of autonomy, spontaneity, and liberation. But true freedom cannot exist without discipline. They are two sides of the same coin. Discipline provides the structure that allows for freedom. It's through disciplined habits and commitments that we create space for choice and flexibility in our lives. For example, financial discipline, budgeting, saving, and making wise investments creates the freedom to live without the constant stress of debt or financial insecurity. Discipline in health, maintaining a regular exercise routine, eating nourishing foods gives us the freedom to move through life with energy and vitality. When we develop discipline, we are no longer slaves to our impulses or immediate desires. We are able to make choices that align with our long-term goals and values, rather than being controlled by fleeting emotions or external pressures. In this way, discipline becomes the gateway to freedom. It's not about limiting ourselves, it's about creating the conditions in which we can fully experience life on our own terms. Discipline isn't always about holding on. Sometimes the most disciplined thing we can do is let go of old patterns, of limiting beliefs, of people or situations that no longer serve us. Letting go is one of the hardest forms of discipline because it requires us to trust the unknown. It requires us to release our grip on control and accept that not everything is meant to be held onto. Letting go is especially important when it comes to perfectionism. So many of us hold ourselves to impossibly high standards, believing that if we can just be perfect, we will finally be worthy of love, success, or happiness. But perfectionism is a trap. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of never feeling good enough, never being satisfied with our efforts, and constantly striving for an unattainable ideal. The discipline of letting go means accepting our imperfections and recognizing that they are a part of our humanity. It means giving ourselves permission to be flawed, to make mistakes, and to grow at our own pace. It means releasing the need for external validation and trusting that we are enough, just as we are. This kind of discipline is incredibly liberating because it frees us from the constant pressure to perform and allows us to show up authentically without fear of judgment. Discipline is not a quick fix, it's a long-term practice. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to delay gratification in service of a greater goal. In a world that is increasingly focused on instant results and immediate satisfaction, cultivating discipline can feel countercultural. We are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we should have everything we want right now with no waiting, no discomfort, and no effort required. But the truth is, anything worth having takes time. Whether it's building a career, nurturing a relationship, or working on personal growth, the most meaningful achievements in life are the result of sustained effort over time. Discipline teaches us to play the long game. It helps us stay focused on our bigger vision, even when progress is slow or the rewards are not immediately visible. Patience is a key component of discipline because it allows us to stay committed, even when we don't see immediate results. It teaches us to trust the process and to believe that the small, consistent actions we take today will eventually add up to something significant. This kind of discipline requires a deep sense of purpose and faith in our own journey. It's about understanding that the path to success is not always linear, and that setbacks and challenges are a natural part of the process. At its core, discipline is an expression of self-respect. It's a way of honoring our own potential, our own values, and our own desires. When we practice discipline, we are saying to ourselves, I am worthy of the effort it takes to pursue my goals. I am capable of making choices that align with my highest self, and I am deserving of the life I want to create. Self-respect is the foundation of discipline because it gives us the motivation to keep going, even when the path is difficult. When we respect ourselves, we are less likely to settle for mediocrity or to give up on our dreams. We understand that we are responsible for our own lives and that no one else is going to do the work for us. But self-respect also means knowing when to rest, when to ask for help, and when to give ourselves grace. Discipline is not about pushing ourselves to the point of burnout or exhaustion. It's about finding a balance between effort and self-care, between ambition and contentment. It's about understanding that we can be both driven and gentle with ourselves, that we can strive for excellence without sacrificing our well-being. Discipline is not a one-time event, it's a daily practice. And one of the most effective ways to cultivate discipline is by building strong, positive habits. Habits are the building blocks of discipline because they allow us to automate certain behaviors, freeing up mental energy for more complex tasks. When we develop habits that align with our goals, discipline becomes easier because we no longer have to rely on willpower alone. Willpower is a finite resource. It's something that can be depleted over time, especially when we are faced with multiple decisions or challenges. But habits, once established, require less conscious effort. They become part of our routine, something we do automatically without having to think about it. For example, if your goal is to write a book, you might start by creating the habit of writing for 30 minutes every morning. At first, it will require discipline to sit down and write each day. But over time, as the habit becomes ingrained, it will feel less like a struggle and more like a natural part of your day. The key is to start small, to focus on consistency, rather than intensity, and to trust that the cumulative effect of your habits will lead to significant progress over time. Discipline isn't just about action, it's also about reflection. In order to stay on track and continue growing, we need to regularly check in with ourselves and assess how we are doing. Are we living in alignment with our values? Are we making progress toward our goals? Are there areas where we need to course correct or adjust our approach? Reflection is a form of discipline because it requires us to pause, to be honest with ourselves, and to take responsibility for our choices. It's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life, to keep moving forward without ever stopping to evaluate whether we are on the right path. But without reflection, discipline can become mechanical or misguided. We can end up working hard toward goals that no longer serve us, or sticking to routines that are no longer effective. Regular reflection allows us to stay intentional about our discipline. It gives us the opportunity to celebrate our progress, to learn from our setbacks, and to make adjustments as needed. It also helps us stay connected to our why, the deeper reason behind our efforts. When we take the time to reflect, we are reminded of the purpose behind our discipline, which fuels our motivation and keeps us going. One of the most empowering aspects of discipline is that it puts the power of choice back in our hands. When we practice discipline, we are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances or our immediate impulses. We recognize that in every moment we have the ability to choose how we respond, how we show up, and what we focus on. This sense of agency is incredibly powerful because it reminds us that we are not victims of our circumstances. We may not be able to control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. We can choose to act in ways that align with our values, even when it's hard. We can choose to stay committed to our goals, even when progress is slow. And we can choose to keep moving forward, even in the face of setbacks or challenges. Discipline is not about eliminating choice, it's about making deliberate choices that support our growth and well-being. It's about recognizing that every action we take is an opportunity to move closer to or further away from the life we want to create. When we embrace discipline, we reclaim our power to shape our own lives. Perhaps the most important time to practice discipline is when we are faced with adversity. It's easy to stay disciplined when things are going well, when we are motivated and everything is falling into place. But the true test of discipline comes when life throws us curveballs, when we are tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed. In moments of adversity, discipline becomes a lifeline. It's what allows us to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear. It's what helps us stay focused on our goals, even when it feels like everything is working against us. And it's what gives us the strength to persevere, even when we feel like giving up. Adversity is inevitable. We will all face challenges, setbacks, and disappointments at some point in our lives. But how we respond to those challenges is what defines us. Discipline is the practice of showing up, day after day, even in the face of adversity. It's the commitment to keep going, even when the road is difficult. And it's the belief that no matter what happens, we are capable of overcoming obstacles and achieving our goals. At its highest level, discipline is a tool for self-actualization. It's what allows us to reach our full potential, to become the person we are meant to be. Self-actualization is not something that happens overnight. It's a lifelong journey of growth, learning, and discovery. And discipline is the vehicle that moves us forward on that journey. Self-actualization requires us to be disciplined in our pursuit of knowledge, in our efforts to improve ourselves, and in our commitment to living in alignment with our values. It's about constantly striving to be better, not out of a sense of inadequacy, but out of a desire to fully express who we are. Discipline helps us tap into our innate potential by giving us the structure and focus we need to develop our talents, cultivate our strengths, and overcome our limitations. It's what allows us to move from dreaming about our ideal self to actually becoming that person. Through discipline, we transform potential into reality. One of the most profound ways discipline manifests in our lives is through emotional resilience. Emotional resilience is our ability to recover from setbacks, adapt to change, and keep moving forward in the face of hardship. It's not about avoiding pain or difficulty, but about developing the strength to navigate it. And discipline is the practice that helps us build that strength. Life is unpredictable, and our emotions can often feel like waves crashing against us, sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming. In these moments, it's easy to be swept away by our feelings, reacting impulsively or withdrawing into ourselves. But discipline teaches us to pause, to take a breath, and to respond rather than react. It helps us create space between stimulus and response, giving us the clarity to make choices that align with our values, rather than being driven by our emotions in the heat of the moment. Discipline in emotional resilience doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring our feelings. On the contrary, it requires us to acknowledge our emotions fully, to sit with discomfort, and to process what we are experiencing. It's the discipline of self-awareness, recognizing when we are triggered, understanding the root of our emotions, and choosing how we want to move forward. This kind of emotional discipline empowers us to stay grounded even when life feels chaotic. Over time, as we practice this form of discipline, we become more resilient. We learn that we can handle difficult emotions without being consumed by them. We develop confidence in our ability to face adversity, knowing that we have the tools and the discipline to navigate whatever comes our way. This resilience not only helps us in our personal lives, but also strengthens our relationships, our work, and our ability to lead with compassion and integrity. Another essential aspect of discipline is compassion, both for ourselves and for others. Compassion is often seen as something soft, a natural feeling that arises in moments of empathy. But in reality, compassion requires a great deal of discipline, especially in difficult circumstances. When someone wrongs us, our instinct might be to react with anger, resentment, or even revenge. It takes discipline to pause and choose a more compassionate response. It takes discipline to see the humanity in others, even when they have hurt us. And it takes discipline to forgive, to let go of grudges, and to act from a place of love rather than fear or hatred. Compassion toward ourselves is perhaps even more difficult. We are often our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to impossibly high standards and berating ourselves for every perceived failure. It takes discipline to practice self-compassion, to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend. It takes discipline to forgive ourselves for our mistakes, to give ourselves grace in moments of struggle, and to remember that we are worthy of love and care, no matter what. Self-compassion is not about letting ourselves off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It's about recognizing that we are human, that we will make mistakes, and that growth is a process. The discipline of self-compassion allows us to keep moving forward without being paralyzed by shame or self-doubt. It helps us stay resilient in the face of setbacks and fosters a sense of inner peace that supports our overall well-being. In the realm of leadership, discipline is one of the most critical attributes a person can possess. Effective leaders are not just those who inspire others with their vision or charisma, they are also those who embody discipline in their actions, decisions, and behaviors. Leadership requires discipline in many forms: self-discipline, the discipline to serve others, and the discipline to stay true to one's values, even when it's difficult. Self-discipline is the foundation of leadership because it enables leaders to model the behaviors they wish to see in others. A leader who cannot manage their own time, energy, or emotions will struggle to guide others effectively. Self-discipline allows leaders to be consistent, reliable, and trustworthy. It helps them maintain focus on long-term goals, resist distractions, and make decisions based on principle rather than convenience. But leadership also requires the discipline to serve others. True leadership is not about power or authority, it's about service. It's about putting the needs of the team, the organization, or the community above one's own ego or desires. This kind of discipline requires humility, patience, and a deep sense of responsibility. It means showing up for others, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. It means listening, supporting, and empowering those around you to grow and succeed. The discipline of leadership also extends to staying true to one's values. In a world that often rewards shortcuts, compromise, or expediency, it takes tremendous discipline to lead with integrity. It takes discipline to make difficult decisions that may not be popular but are in alignment with your core principles. It takes discipline to resist the temptation to cut corners or prioritize short-term gains over long-term impact. Leaders who embody this kind of discipline create a culture of trust, accountability, and respect, which inspires others to follow their example. Discipline and courage are deeply intertwined. It takes courage to be disciplined courage to make difficult choices, to face our fears, and to step outside our comfort zones. But discipline also fuels courage, providing us with the tools and confidence we need to take bold actions in pursuit of our goals. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. And discipline is what enables us to take those courageous steps, even when we are afraid. Whether it's speaking up in a meeting, taking a risk in our career, or pursuing a dream that feels out of reach, discipline gives us the structure and support we need to act with bravery. Courage often requires us to break free from old patterns or societal expectations. It takes courage to challenge the status quo, to stand up for what we believe in, and to carve our own path. But without discipline, that courage can be fleeting. Discipline ensures that our courageous actions are not just one-time events, but part of a sustained effort to live authentically and boldly. In this way, discipline and courage feed into each other. The more we practice discipline, the more confident and capable we become, which in turn fuels our courage. And the more courageous actions we take, the more we strengthen our discipline, knowing that we are capable of facing challenges and moving through fear. Together, discipline and courage create a powerful combination that allows us to live with purpose, integrity, and resilience. Excellence is not an accident, it is the result of discipline. Whether in sports, art, business, or any other field, those who achieve excellence do so because they have made a commitment to disciplined practice and continuous improvement. They understand that talent alone is not enough. It's the disciplined effort, day after day, that leads to mastery. The pursuit of excellence requires us to be disciplined in our focus, our work ethic, and our commitment to growth. It means showing up consistently, even when we don't feel like it. It means pushing through moments of frustration or boredom and staying focused on the long-term goal. It means seeking out feedback, learning from our mistakes, and constantly striving to get better. But excellence is not just about external achievements, it's also about how we approach the process. Discipline in the pursuit of excellence means being fully present in our efforts, whether we are working on a major project or practicing a small skill. It's about paying attention to the details, staying curious, and being open to learning and growth. This kind of disciplined approach not only leads to better outcomes, but also makes the journey itself more meaningful and fulfilling. Excellence is a moving target. It's something we are always striving for, but never fully reaching. There is always room for growth, for improvement, for deeper mastery. Discipline is what keeps us on that path, even when the going gets tough. It's what allows us to maintain high standards for ourselves without becoming rigid or perfectionistic. It's about balancing ambition with patience, effort with enjoyment, and striving with gratitude for where we are in the moment. Innovation might seem like the opposite of discipline. After all, innovation is about breaking the mold, thinking outside the box, and challenging the status quo. But in reality, discipline is a key driver of innovation. Without discipline, innovation remains nothing more than ideas floating in the air potential, but not reality. Discipline provides the structure and persistence needed to turn innovative ideas into actionable solutions. It's what allows us to take risks, experiment, and iterate without giving up at the first sign of failure. Innovation requires us to stay disciplined in our thinking, to keep asking questions, and to stay open to new possibilities, even when the path forward is unclear. In the realm of creativity and innovation, discipline often looks like routine. It's the discipline of setting aside time each day to brainstorm, to prototype, or to collaborate with others. It's the discipline of testing new ideas, collecting feedback, and refining our approach. And it's the discipline of sticking with a project or idea long enough to see it through, even when it's challenging or the results aren't immediately visible. At the same time, discipline in innovation also requires flexibility. It's about being disciplined in our approach, but open to adapting or pivoting when necessary. This balance between structure and flexibility is what allows us to stay grounded in our efforts while also remaining agile in our thinking. Through disciplined innovation, we create the space for breakthroughs to happen, turning what was once a dream into something tangible and transformative. One of the most challenging aspects of discipline is finding balance. It's easy to become overly rigid or overly lax in our approach to discipline, swinging between extremes of all or nothing thinking. But true discipline is about finding the middle ground, the balance between effort and rest, ambition and contentment, work and play. The discipline of balance requires us to be mindful of our energy, our time, and our priorities. It's about recognizing that we cannot do everything all at once, and that there are seasons for different types of focus. Sometimes discipline means pushing ourselves to work harder, to stay committed, or to reach for a goal. Other times, discipline means knowing when to rest, to recharge, and to take care of our mental and physical well-being. Finding balance is an ongoing process, one that requires regular reflection and adjustment. It's not about achieving a perfect equilibrium at all times, but about staying attuned to our needs and being willing to make changes when necessary. This kind of disciplined balance helps us avoid burnout, stay motivated, and sustain our efforts over the long term. Ultimately, discipline is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about showing up consistently, making intentional choices, and staying committed to our growth even when it's hard. And within that discipline, there is room for rest, for joy, and for self-compassion. Balance is the key to maintaining discipline over time, allowing us to thrive rather than merely survive. The practice of discipline is a lifelong journey. There is no endpoint, no moment when we can say, I have mastered discipline. Instead, it's something we continually cultivate, refine, and deepen throughout our lives. Discipline evolves with us as we grow, adapt to new circumstances, and face new challenges. What discipline looks like in one season of life may be very different from what it looks like in another. In our younger years, discipline might be focused on building skills, pursuing education, or establishing a career. Later in life, discipline might take the form of maintaining health, nurturing relationships, or contributing to our community. But no matter what stage of life we are in, discipline remains a constant force, guiding us toward our highest potential. As we age, discipline also teaches us the importance of reflection and wisdom. We begin to understand that discipline is not just about doing more or achieving more, it's also about being more present, more intentional, and more aligned with our true selves. Through discipline, we learn to prioritize what truly matters, to let go of what no longer serves us, and to create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. In this way, discipline becomes not just a tool for success, but a way of being. It becomes a practice that permeates every aspect of our lives, from our work to our relationships to our inner growth. And through this lifelong practice of discipline, we become the authors of our own story, capable of creating a life that is rich, purposeful, and deeply rewarding. The exploration of discipline can continue indefinitely, expanding into other realms like spirituality, community building, and societal impact. There's always more to discover and reflect on in how discipline shapes us and the world around us.